High above the Atlantic Ocean, this is the story of Air France Flight 447, when Autopilot became the enemy. It was a quiet night over the Atlantic Ocean on May 31st, 2009. Air France Flight 447, an Airbus A330-203, was carrying 228 passengers and crew from Rio de Janeiro to Paris. The aircraft had departed in clear skies over Brazil, but soon encountered turbulence over the equatorial Atlantic, where thunderstorms were common. The flight had a routine start. The crew checked instruments, engaged autopilot, and began the long journey across the ocean. At cruising altitude, everything appeared normal. Passengers rested, cabin lights dimmed, and the hum of engines created a calm atmosphere. The pilots monitored flight data, while the aircraft systems managed speed and altitude automatically. At 2:10 a.m., the weather began to change. A storm cell had formed along the flight path, with rising air currents and heavy rain. The aircraft entered clouds and encountered turbulence. Outside, visibility dropped to nearly zero. Inside the cockpit, the instruments started showing small discrepancies in airspeed readings. The pitot tubes, sensors that measure airspeed, had become blocked by ice. Autopilot remained engaged, but the conflicting data caused the system to disconnect. This is where the human-machine interaction became critical. The pilots were now in manual control at 35,000 feet, but the sudden stall warning and inconsistent airspeed indicators created confusion. The flight crew had been augmented with an extra pilot to allow for scheduled rest during the flight back. This meant that there were 3 pilots who were going to fly together, 1 captain and 2 first officers. The co-pilot, younger and less experienced with high-altitude manual flight, began following emergency procedures. Their training had covered stall recovery, but never in combination with unreliable speed data and sudden storm turbulence. 1,700 of which was flown as a pilot in command on the Airbus A330. The first officer was 32 years old. He was the least experienced of the crew, with 3,000 hours in total and 800 on the autopilot had already disengaged, so there was no automated system to correct the situation. Inside the cabin, passengers felt a sudden shudder. Drinks in cups wobbled, seats vibrated, and some people awoke from sleep. Cabin crew, seated with seatbelts fastened, monitored the situation calmly. No one knew the severity of the problem yet. Outside, the aircraft was invisible within thick storm clouds. Lightning flashed, illuminating the wings briefly. In the cockpit, tension rose. The stall warning sounded repeatedly. The pilots followed the Airbus emergency checklist, trying to lower the nose to regain lift. But conflicting instrument readings created doubt. One display showed the plane climbing, another showed descent. Misinterpretation of these readings slowed their response. The plane began to descend gradually. Every adjustment by the pilots altered the flight path slightly, but the stall persisted. Small altitude changes seemed exaggerated due to the storm and instrument errors. The pilots communicated calmly, but urgently, attempting to correct the situation. They discussed airspeed, pitch, and engine power while monitoring all available systems. The storm intensified. Strong updrafts and downdrafts caused rapid changes in aircraft attitude. Each motion required immediate correction. The co-pilot tried to follow standard stall recovery procedures, but at such high altitude, the behavior of the plane was less intuitive than at lower altitudes. The aerodynamics were different, and human reaction time became a critical factor. Minutes passed with the plane struggling to maintain stability. The crew remained professional, calling out speeds and altitudes, and making minute adjustments to the side sticks. The captain attempted to regain a controlled descent, reducing pitch while carefully managing engine thrust. Meanwhile, passengers remained largely unaware of the technical battle in the cockpit. Outside the plane, the Atlantic night was endless. Storm clouds stretched in every direction. The aircraft, heavy with fuel and passengers, continued its uncontrolled dance through the sky. The stall warning continued to sound. The pilots were trained to push the nose down and increase airspeed, but in the confusion of contradictory instruments and high-altitude aerodynamic factors, some corrective actions were delayed or reversed, unintentionally. Human error was not the result of negligence, but the natural challenge of managing an extreme situation under stress. As the plane lost altitude, the crew attempted to stabilize it multiple times. Each adjustment had to account for storm turbulence, unreliable speed data, and the lingering effects of previous inputs. Their experience guided them, but the combination of factors was unprecedented. The human mind can react faster than machines in some ways, but slower in others when inputs conflict. The autopilot's absence highlighted a modern aviation challenge: dependence on automation. For hours, pilots relied on it to maintain level flight, speed, and altitude. The sudden return to manual control exposed both strengths and vulnerabilities. Even the most experienced crew could struggle when multiple warning systems provided ambiguous or contradictory data. The cockpit became a controlled chaos of warnings, instrument readings, and split-second decisions. The pilots communicated precisely, repeating numbers and positions, attempting to confirm their understanding. They adhered to standard procedures while improvising as the situation evolved. The aircraft's descent rate increased. The co-pilot called out altitudes as they dropped thousands of feet in minutes. The captain attempted to adjust pitch and thrust, but the plane remained unstable. Each movement had delayed consequences. High-altitude stalls are counterintuitive. Pulling back on the stick can worsen lift loss instead of helping. Inside the cabin, the hum of engines changed subtly. Passengers may have noticed vibrations, slight tilts, or unusual sounds. Yet the cabin crew remained calm, and reinforcing safety and instructing passengers to remain seated and fastened. No panic occurred. Human perception inside the cabin lagged behind the technical events in the cockpit. Investigators later analyzed this phase in detail. They found that the pitot tube's ice blockage was the starting point, but the chain of events involved a combination of automation reliance, high-altitude aerodynamics, and human decision-making. The crew did everything possible to follow procedures, but faced unprecedented challenges. Every second was critical. Small adjustments to pitch or thrust could either stabilize or worsen the situation. The interplay between storm turbulence and aerodynamic stall created an almost unpredictable flight path. The pilots remained focused, verbalizing each action and cross-checking instruments, adhering to both training and instincts. Lightning occasionally illuminated the outside sky, giving brief glimpses of the wingtips and storm clouds. The crew continued to monitor all systems, even as the aircraft began to descend faster than usual. The human factor, training, reaction, coordination, played a pivotal role in the cockpit. Each decision had consequences, measured in hundreds of feet of altitude loss. The passengers experienced minimal cues of the growing emergency. The cabin remained calm. Drinks, lights, and soft sounds of the plane's systems continued. The real drama unfolded entirely in the cockpit. This contrast between the calm cabin and critical cockpit environment is often seen in major aviation incidents. The aircraft remained in a precarious state. Each adjustment by the pilots had to be precise. Misreading an instrument or overcorrecting could destabilize the plane further. They followed Airbus emergency procedures repeatedly, cross-checking every reading and every response. As the plane continued its descent through the storm, the pilot's workload intensified. Every second required precise control. They adjusted pitch, thrust, and rudder inputs continuously, trying to stabilize the aircraft. The Airbus A330-203 was a complex machine, designed to handle turbulence and high-altitude flight, but even advanced aircraft cannot compensate for conflicting data and human uncertainty combined. The co-pilot kept calling out speeds and altitudes. "Airspeed decreasing," he warned. "Altitude dropping." The captain responded, maintaining focus, making micro-adjustments to keep the wings level and prevent a further stall. Their voices, calm yet tense, reflected professionalism under extreme stress. The plane's nose remained high, a dangerous angle for lift. In normal flight, pilots avoid this at cruising altitude because it reduces airflow over the wings. Here, the stall continued, invisible to the passengers. Outside, the storm raged, lightning flashing intermittently, clouds swirling around the aircraft. Visibility was zero, leaving the pilots dependent entirely on instruments. The autopilot remained disengaged. Previously, it had controlled speed, heading, and altitude precisely. Its sudden absence highlighted a modern aviation paradox. Machines can assist, but human pilots must always be ready for manual control. Automation dependency can lull even experienced pilots into delayed reactions under unexpected conditions. Inside the cockpit, the crew followed Airbus procedures repeatedly. The checklist emphasized reducing pitch, increasing thrust, and stabilizing the aircraft. They attempted to monitor angle of attack indicators, airspeed, altitude, and heading simultaneously. Each instrument told a slightly different story because of the frozen pitot tubes. Confusion arose naturally, not negligence, because modern aircraft rely on multiple automated systems to manage these variables. Minutes stretched as the descent continued. The co-pilot announced every 1,000-foot drop while the captain adjusted the side stick to balance pitch and stabilize the aircraft. Small corrections were required constantly because turbulence pushed the plane off balance repeatedly. Every decision had consequences measured in hundreds of feet of altitude. The aircraft's descent was not straight. Wind gusts, storm updrafts, and downdrafts caused small banking motions. The pilots corrected for each, maintaining wings level while controlling pitch. This required high situational awareness, rapid mental calculations, and continuous cross-checking of instruments. Meanwhile, in the passenger cabin, the atmosphere remained calm. Overhead, bins rattled occasionally. Some drinks sloshed slightly in cups, and passengers looked around in mild curiosity. Most were unaware of the life-threatening aerodynamic stall occurring miles above them. The cabin crew followed standard procedures, instructing passengers to remain seated with seatbelts fastened. The storm outside intensified. Lightning flashes illuminated wingtips, revealing turbulent cloud formations. Rain pelted the windshield. The engines operated normally, but the lift generated by the wings was insufficient. The aircraft's descent rate increased despite the pilot's best efforts. Investigators later concluded that this was a high-altitude stall scenario that few pilots ever experience in reality. Stall recovery training is usually conducted at lower altitudes, where pilots have more time and room for correction. At 35,000 feet over the Atlantic, the combination of automation disengagement, blocked airspeed sensors, and storm turbulence made the situation unprecedented. Inside the cockpit, tension mounted. ECAM alerts continued, home warning of stall and inconsistent speed readings. The pilot spoke clearly, repeating numbers, verifying data, and coordinating actions. The captain maintained slight nose-down pressure while managing thrust, trying to regain lift. The co-pilot focused on monitoring speed and altitude, verbalizing every step to ensure situational awareness. Each second felt like minutes. The aircraft descended thousands of feet, the storm surrounding it providing no visual reference. The pilots relied entirely on instruments, each of which sometimes contradicted the other due to the faulty pitot tubes. Human cognition was pushed to its limit. The plane's angle remained dangerously high, but pitch adjustments were constrained. Pulling the nose down too quickly at high altitude could increase airspeed, but reduce control stability. The pilots had to balance carefully, knowing that even minor overcorrections could worsen the stall. From the outside, the aircraft's descent appeared slow, almost deliberate, but inside every movement was frantic. Pilots adjusted controls, cross-checked alarms, and analyzed every metric on the fly. Despite the chaos, they remained calm, following procedures to the best of their abilities. Passengers continued to experience mild turbulence. Cabin lighting created a sense of normalcy, though outside conditions were extreme. The contrast between calm cabin and emergency cockpit is common in aviation incidents. What passengers perceive and what pilots manage can be vastly different. As the descent continued, the crew attempted multiple recovery maneuvers. They followed Airbus emergency protocols: reduce pitch, apply thrust, maintain wings level, monitor altitude and speed. Each correction had delayed effects, magnified by turbulence. The plane's behavior was counterintuitive. Its high-altitude stalls react differently than low-altitude stalls. Communication between pilots remained clear and structured. They repeated actions, cross-checked instruments, and called out each observation. Despite confusion from faulty speed data, they maintained procedural discipline. Every action was deliberate. Every decision weighed carefully against potential consequences. The storm seemed endless. Strong updrafts and downdrafts constantly shifted the plane's attitude. Pilots countered each movement, trying to stabilize flight. The aircraft's descent rate increased, but the crew never panicked. Their professionalism and training guided them through the rapidly changing scenario. Meanwhile, the aircraft systems continued to provide information, though partially unreliable. Stall warnings, altitude readings, and speed indicators conflicted intermittently. The pilots prioritized cross-checking multiple sources, interpreting data carefully to decide the best corrective action. Outside, the Atlantic night was vast and dark. Lightning illuminated the surrounding storm, revealing the aircraft briefly in its turbulent environment. The scene emphasizes how isolated aircraft are during oceanic flights. Thousands of miles from land, dependent entirely on crew judgment and instruments. As the aircraft continued its descent, the pilot's decision-making remained crucial. They balanced pitch, engine thrust, and bank angle, attempting to prevent further loss of control. Every input had a delayed effect. Each second of hesitation could cost altitude. Investigators later noted that the human factors involved: stress, automation dependence, and high-altitude aerodynamics. Ice-blocked pitot tubes triggered the chain, but human and machine interactions amplified the risk. Despite the extreme circumstances, the crew followed procedures with diligence. Their efforts demonstrate the complexity of modern aviation and the limits of human performance when unexpected systems failures coincide with severe weather. The aircraft continued its descent steadily through thick storm clouds. Lightning illuminated the wingtips intermittently. Inside the cockpit, pilots monitored all instruments, adjusted controls, and attempted recovery. The chain of events highlighted how multiple factors, weather, automation, instrument failure, and human response, can converge in seconds. Passengers remained largely unaware, experiencing only mild turbulence. Cabin crew ensured seatbelts remained fastened. Outside, storm clouds swirled endlessly around the aircraft, emphasizing the isolation and vulnerability of high-altitude flight over the ocean. The Airbus A330-203 continued its descent over the vast Atlantic. The storm raged around it, turbulence tossing the plane unpredictably. The pilots continued to follow every procedure in the Airbus emergency checklist, but the blocked pitot tubes and high-altitude aerodynamic stall made their efforts extremely difficult. Every correction had delayed consequences. When the captain adjusted the nose slightly down, the plane responded unpredictably due to the storm's updrafts. When thrust was increased, the aircraft pitched differently than expected. The combination of environmental and mechanical factors created a scenario where normal intuition did not always apply. Minutes passed as the plane lost thousands of feet. The co-pilot continued announcing altitude and airspeed readings, even though some indicators were unreliable. The captain maintained calm control, balancing manual inputs with split-second judgment. Their professionalism prevented panic, even in a situation where recovery seemed almost impossible. Meanwhile, passengers remained largely unaware. Outside the windows, only darkness and occasional lightning were visible. Inside, cabin lights provided a gentle glow. Drinks sloshed slightly in cups. Seatbelts held passengers in place, and cabin crew remained seated, calm, and alert. The contrast between the calm inside and the critical situation outside emphasized the invisible complexity of cockpit emergencies. At high altitude, the aerodynamic stall persisted. The aircraft's nose remained elevated, preventing the wings from generating sufficient lift. Each movement of the side stick caused delayed responses, amplified by storm turbulence. The plane's descent rate increased, but the pilots continued precise adjustments, attempting recovery while adhering strictly to Airbus emergency procedures. Eventually, after several minutes of struggle, the aircraft's altitude decreased below 10,000 feet. The combination of high-altitude stall, storm turbulence, and delayed reaction times made full recovery impossible. The plane continued to descend uncontrollably toward the ocean. Investigators later analyzed the cockpit voice recorder. It revealed calm, professional communication between the captain and co-pilot. No blame was cast internally. The crew was following standard procedures to the best of their ability under extreme stress. Their training guided them. But the scenario involved factors beyond normal operational experience. The final moments of Flight 447 were catastrophic. The aircraft impacted the Atlantic at high speed. All 228 people on board tragically lost their lives. There were no survivors. Recovery of wreckage took weeks in deep ocean waters. Black boxes were retrieved later, providing investigators with critical data to understand the accident fully. The investigation found that the immediate cause was the blocked pitot tubes, Watskaki and SAWS, which led to unreliable airspeed readings. This triggered autopilot disengagement, forcing the pilots into manual control during a high-altitude stall. Human factors played a significant role. Despite following procedures, the crew could not fully recover due to stress, conflicting data, and complex high-altitude aerodynamics. Contributing factors included automation dependency, high-altitude stall counterintuitiveness, and severe weather conditions. The combination of these elements created a chain of events that led to the crash. No single factor alone would have caused the tragedy. The aviation industry took the lesson seriously. Pitot tubes were redesigned and tested for better resistance to icing. Airlines updated pilot training to emphasize high-altitude stall recovery under unreliable instrument conditions. Procedures for manual flying after autopilot disengagement were reinforced, ones with more realistic simulator scenarios covering extreme situations. Air France and Airbus collaborated to improve crew resource management. Pilots were trained to maintain calm communication, verify multiple sources of information, and coordinate decisions precisely under stress. The Flight 447 tragedy became a case study in human-machine interaction and the limits of automation reliance. Global aviation authorities updated regulations for cockpit procedures and sensor maintenance. Airlines reinforced simulator training for high-altitude manual control. Pitot tube icing tests were added to certification protocols, ensuring that modern aircraft can handle extreme conditions more safely. The accident also highlighted the importance of monitoring automation systems carefully. Pilots learned to anticipate possible failures and maintain readiness for immediate manual control. The lessons extended to cockpit design, emphasizing clear, reliable instrument display, INTA and training crews to interpret conflicting data effectively. Flight 447, while tragic, changed aviation safety worldwide. It demonstrated that extreme weather, mechanical failure, and human response could combine in ways that were not fully anticipated. The industry responded with improved training, technology, and procedures. Pilots today are better equipped to handle high-altitude emergencies because of these lessons. In remembrance of the passengers and crew, memorials were established in France and Brazil. Families received closure through careful investigation and transparent reporting. The tragedy reinforced that aviation safety is a continuous process of learning, adaptation, and improvement. The legacy of Flight 447 lives on in the enhanced pilot training, improved sensor technology, and refined emergency procedures. Airlines now simulate high-altitude stalls under unreliable data conditions in every major Airbus and Boeing simulator. The lessons emphasize calm, professional, and coordinated responses, a combination of human skill and technological support. The Atlantic Ocean remains vast and silent where Flight 447 was lost, but the lessons continue to guide modern aviation. Pilots, engineers, and regulators worldwide study the accident, ensuring that future flights benefit from the knowledge gained. This tragedy reinforced the principle that safety in aviation requires constant vigilance, continuous improvement, and respect for both human and machine capabilities. Every cockpit now trains with scenarios that were once unimaginable: high-altitude stalls, instrument failures, and automation disengagement during severe storms. Pilots are reminded that the combination of weather, human factors, and technology can challenge even the most experienced crew. Ultimately, the Flight 447 disaster illustrates the delicate balance of modern aviation. Advanced aircraft, skilled pilots, and sophisticated systems can prevent most accidents, but extreme conditions demand vigilance, preparation, and respect for the limits of both humans and machines. From the calm cabin interior to the storm-lashed skies above, Flight 447's story is a powerful reminder. Aviation safety evolves not only from routine operations, but also from studying and understanding the most extreme and tragic events. Lessons learned have since been applied worldwide, making air travel safer for millions every day. The story of Flight 447 is now a teaching tool, a somber reminder of the stakes involved, and a driver for innovation in aircraft design, pilot training, and airline procedures. While the tragedy cannot be undone, the lessons ensure that similar circumstances will be better managed in the future.